Welcome to the Finding Financial Freedom podcast with the Frugal Physician, where Dr. Disha Spath will be your companion on this exciting financial adventure. Get ready to conquer debt, build wealth, and embrace a mindful spending lifestyle that will empower you to live life on your own terms.
Welcome to another episode of Finding Financial Freedom with the Frugal Physician. I'm your host, Dr. Disha Spath. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Catherine Gutierrez, the CEO of Aptus Financial. Catherine, or SC as she likes to be called, is not only a certified financial planner, but also holds an MPP from Harvard University and a Chartered Retirement Plan Specialist designation. Her firm, Aptus Financial, specializes in flat-fee financial planning for early career physicians and young professionals, helping over 800 physicians DIY their finances. Aptus is also a fiduciary advisor for retirement plans, managing financial wellness and student loan advice programs for healthcare organizations. SC is also the author of But First Save 10, the one simple money move that will change your life. Today, we're deep diving into the topic of healthy habits versus common pitfalls in finances. SC, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Disha. It's so great to see you, and it's a huge honor to be on your show.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you here. I've been a big fan, and I was just telling you that I actually bought your book a couple of years ago, and I have like so many notes in here, and I really enjoyed reading it. So thank you for writing it.
Well, thank you for reading it. I appreciate that. It always makes my day when I hear that.
Well, I just love how relatable you are and how much you seem to understand like the struggles of women in medicine. And you've been a big force in the physician finance world. And I loved your talk at the recent conference we were at a couple of years ago. I was just wondering if you could give us insight into how you came to be, so amazing for physician financial planning.
Well, that's super kind of you to say. And, when I started out as a financial planner, that was not the intention. The intention was to start a non-conflicted financial planning practice that would get access to financial planning to people who don't make a lot of money. So originally that was the goal, is to work with nurses and firefighters and police officers. And I didn't even have physicians on my radar. But I started this, non-conflicted model. I'm really passionate about giving that form of financial advice. The first people to hire me were actually physicians just getting started in their careers or still residents. That's when I realized that there is this big gap in servicing. Physicians have a lot of access to financial planners, especially later in their careers when they have accumulated assets, to be able to hire someone who can charge a percentage of assets, which has traditionally been the case for working with physicians, or work with somebody who essentially is going to be selling them some kind of insurance policy or annuity. And we all know how those can go, unfortunately, for physicians. And so it was really kind of seeing that need and being able to work with these physicians who were hungry for knowledge and wanted to do really well. And then also servicing these physicians alongside a lot of influencers and people interested in talking directly to physicians about personal finance, and this big movement to DIY finances and not necessarily pay the fees or get, stuck into these kind of weird nebulous policies that physicians have gotten themselves into. So I have loved being a part of this community. It's been really a lot of fun.
So, what made you so adamant about having a non-conflicted practice? Can you tell us, did you see any horror stories that made you so adamant about it?
Absolutely. I grew up essentially into my adulthood as I'm the first year of millennials, and I was starting my career after the 0809, crisis, and had essentially lived in Phoenix during the housing boom that later busted, almost bought one of those houses. I
Wow.
learned conflicts of interest at a very personal level when I saw the difference my life would have taken, had I bought the house versus not buy the house, and the conflicts that came up from the mortgage brokers who were trying to sell us these houses out in Arizona, right? And then they can just go on and sell the mortgage that they sold to us. And so when I saw that conflict of interest of someone saying, no, you should buy this, but then they just make their money and move right along, I realize how important it is when you're giving financial advice to be able to give it when you have no skin in the game. after seeing the pitfalls of, friends who were losing their houses while they were losing their jobs in that 0809 period of time, that's really
Mhm.
where I started thinking, gosh, where can people go and get good financial advice that is not from someone who has skin in the game? Where do you go to find out if this house you're about to buy is too much house, if you really afford it, or where should you invest? I mean, these are important questions. And I really felt adamant and still to this day feel adamant that we ought to try to make ourselves as non-conflicted as possible when we're helping people figure these things out. Even the assets under management model, it vastly improved the delivery of financial advice from the previous, broker dealer model. But still, it has a lot of conflicts, especially with physicians. Should I pay off these student loans or should I put money into a brokerage account with an advisor? Well, that advisor is going to have an inherent conflict of interest because they're going to make more money on your decision one way or the other if you put money into the brokerage account than paying off the student loans. So I really believe that this is the right delivery to be able to say, hey, just pay us a fee and just get non-conflicted advice.
Yeah, so you have a fee-based, fee-only model. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we go a little bit further. So we are actually an advice only model. So
Okay.
we don't manage assets. People just pay us a fee and we give them a financial planning process, financial advice, and then we educate our clients on how to actually implement the advice, including the investments. We teach our clients to invest on their own. They open their own accounts, they make the trades, but with us kind of looking over their shoulder.
Wow, that's really empowering. And it sounds like a really great way to learn how to manage your finances. What I really liked about your book is one of the points that you made is, I'm just quoting from your book here. You'll understand why the financial advice industry is not currently built to advise you in your stage of life. And you're specifically talking to women in this book. So tell me why you thought that women specifically needed a book written for them.
I always like to remind people of this. 1974 was when the Fair Housing Act was passed, when we could take out a mortgage without a husband or a father
Wow,
essentially co-signing with
really?
us. Yes,
That's
I
so
tell people,
recent.
I know. And so maybe legally we're at the table, right? The big kid financial table, but I think
Right.
culturally we are not there. I get so many women physicians who are absolutely taking charge of the finances in their household. Like they might be married to a man who is saying, I don't care anything about this. And she really cares and she takes it on and goes to great lengths to go hire a financial advisor, brings her husband along begrudgingly. And then the advisor goes and talks to the husband the whole time. And the husband's saying, you don't get it.
Right.
It's my wife that does it. We have this cultural sense still to this day that men hold all of the expertise, all the ability, all of the interest with money. And so we have to kind of manufacture a seat at the table that is legitimate. And one of the things that's interesting to me is that people think I'm trying to bring women to the financial table because it's like the right thing to do. It's good for women. Okay, let's be very real about this. We need women at the table. It's good for all of us. And here is why. If you look at all of the data on investing, you will notice a fun little trend that if you look at gender differences in investing, turns out women tend to do better in investing than men. And there's a
Yep.
great Berkeley study from the 90s that kind of helps us understand why. And that's that overconfidence leads to overtrading, and overtrading leads to underperformance in the market. And men tend to be a lot bigger risk takers, a lot more overconfident. When we're looking at a household and we're trying to figure out who's making long-term financial decisions here, do we really just want one spouse making all of those decisions, especially if that one spouse might have a higher risk tolerance, might be doing a little bit riskier behavior? We need to have a very balanced approach. Now, we're overgeneralizing here, of course. I mean, I know lots of women who are dear friends of mine that are, crypto and like very risk taking women. So, we don't want to overgeneralize. But when I'm talking about bringing women to the table, it is not like I'm just trying to make women financially illiterate. That's not the goal here. I really believe we need them at the table. And every study is showing that we are lagging that participation in our households.
Yes. It's so funny when you say that the advisor's only talking to the man. And we recently took a trip to Spain and I speak Spanish. My husband doesn't, but like the machismo culture of Spain and, the Spanish culture in general, we went to like a local restaurant that wasn't on a resort. And seriously, the entire time, the waiter insisted on talking to my husband who doesn't speak Spanish. And he kept like trying to like motion over to me and like talk to her, but he would only talk to him. And that has actually happened to us in an advisement office as well. Why wouldn't men feel like they're really great at investing? It seems like the entire world thinks that they are the expert at it anyway.
That's it. That's it. We've got this cultural expectation. I don't think anyone is consciously thinking of it. This is stuff that's happening below the surface, right?
Right.
And so if it's happening below the surface and we're not naming it, then we're not going to fix it. So
Exactly.
that's what I'm talking about there in that passage in the book is I really think we have to like name this and we have to say to women, I give talks all the time, as you know, and like for instance, last week, this happens to me all the time. It happened again last week, or where a woman walks up to me and says, I manage a multi-million-dollar budget in my work, and I have no idea what's going on in my budget at home. And this is just a really common thread. My husband handles that, or my dad gives me this fight. And every time a woman says that to me, I think she thinks she's the only one.
Hmm.
So here's the deal. You're not the only one. I don't think it's a good choice to make. I think we have to be involved. There was a UBS study done in 2019 that still haunts me. And it found that more than half of millennial women say that they are not involved in long-term financial decision making in the home. In the same study, more than 90% of women who were widowed or divorced in their 60s said that they wish they had been involved in long-term financial decision making. So we have to fix this, right? And I
Right.
believe that the way we fix this is even if you don't want to be involved in finances, there might be different reasons than an actual desire not to be involved. And so let's just do it. Let's just listen to these podcasts. If you're listening to this, great. Get involved, go to a conference, do some reading. My husband and I don't love talking about money. It's so funny. That's our least favorite thing to do, but we just schedule it. We try to talk 4 times a year about it. Just schedule your quarterly. If you're in a long-term partnership or marriage, get it on the books, talk about it, know what's going on, have a say in it. And I think if we can do this, then we can change a lot about money. And I think we will all collectively become better at money if we have better representation from both genders.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree that having like a family meeting, my husband and I meet once a month to go over our budget, our spending. We do our spreadsheet together and then we talk about goals. And I don't know what we would do if we didn't do that. Like, I feel lost if we miss one of our budget dates. And, we've done that recently. We've kind of skipped a month just because we got busy or whatever. And that next month, I'm like so anxious. I just feel like I don't know where our money is. I don't know if we're spending too much, too little. Like, I need to have that as my compass, going forward. And it makes me feel like so much better because I'm pretty high anxiety anyway. But it makes me feel so much more at ease knowing that I have a handle on our cash flow.
I love that. And that has been the experience when I see women. So in our business, we want both spouses at the table or partners in a partnership at the table. We don't want one person making all the decisions for the
Right.
other. So we'll get people begrudgingly be like, okay, fine, I'll show up, but I have nothing to say. Yes, they do. They end up having lots of opinions and things to say. And one of the most common things people say is that is not nearly as bad as I thought it would be. I think there's this perception that we're all sitting around talking about rates of return on certain asset classes. I just imagine what people think finance is and what they realize is what kind of vacations do you want to take? How long do you want
Right.
to work? These are the questions we're asking and trying to figure out. And when you put it that way, people are like, yes, I want to be involved in that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there are so many unsaid things that between my husband and I, we didn't realize we differed in certain ways until we really talked about it. Like, what is your goal retirement age? Do you actually want to retire early? Like, do I actually want to retire early? And, just sitting down and asking each other those questions also makes you put it in front of yourself, and get that answer from yourself too. And then makes everything so much clearer. Well, now we're talking about money dates and working with our spouses, but let's talk a little bit more about point 2 on your roadmap here. You said you learn why automation can be better than inspiration. And you were talking about money management here. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Oh, and I wrote that book several years ago. I am more passionate about it to this day. Automation is everything. So, I believe in a simple system, a simple financial plan that, invests in very simple, passive mutual funds that
Mhm.
capture the entire market return. But the next step of automation. So I know on the 8th of every single month that our paychecks are going to hit our checking accounts and our money is just going to shoot away in different places. It's going to go into a fund for our vacation, a fund for buying the next car, a fund for home repairs and remodel, a fund for our kids' college education, but also our brokerage account. We have our retirement accounts, but then we also were very high savers. So I have, as I talk about in my book, I have a journey that started out in credit card debt. And now sometimes we'll hit as much as a 40% savings rate. And
Yep.
so, we max out all of our retirement accounts, but we still have to put money into brokerage accounts. And so you can even automate money going into, in our case, a Schwab account, and it just disappears into there and buys some mutual funds. I believe that automation is the key. And so we have seen people who are just dedicated spenders who do not love investing. They're scared of it. They don't understand it. We have seen people that are very extreme cases of credit card debt, physicians, paycheck to paycheck on $500,000 in income a year, literally get a financial plan put together and simply automate the whole thing so that the money just disappears, does its own thing. They can set it and forget it. And they wake up really good with money. I mean, there are paths where you pay attention and you have monthly meetings like you and your spouse, but there are also paths where automation literally will save people who would practice avoidance on money.
Let's talk about labels and how they hinder our progress. Tell me, have you seen people like having trouble making the transition just because they don't want to be labeled certain things?
That's a really great point. I think that people can sometimes come into this world with some baggage. So
Yeah.
we'll see people who, might be really big spenders who come from households where it felt like money was all about deprivation and control. And they don't want to be associated with being frugal because in their mind being frugal is being a penny pincher and it has a very negative connotation. So I think I take your point. I mean, sometimes the labels are actually really unhelpful. I really believe that a focus on paying yourself first is a really great way to get away from it. So I am a spender. I'm a very talented spender. I love spending everything that I have in my account. It actually, I don't know, it feels like good, like I've completed something. And so my husband though is of course, because opposites attract. I think he feels actual physical pain. I think it registers as physical pain to spend money. And so what's interesting is if you pay yourself first, right? So you save first, and then whatever is left can go to bills and, and spending. Then, whether you spent extravagantly or you spent frugally, it doesn't really matter because you paid yourself first. So what I try to have people do is to focus on the bigger picture. Like, are you building wealth? If fundamentally, are you paying your future self first? And are you feeling what it feels like every month to be putting money aside and having that money grow for you? That is different. That feels really good. And then whether you blow the rest or you're good with the rest or you coupon or you don't, doesn't it really like not matter?
It's true. And, I do believe in the importance of spending the rest because if you become too, scarcity mindset and start saving too much, then you're really not living life. And then why are we doing this in the first place, right? I think the whole point of financial planning is that so that we can live our best lives, the best lives that we can imagine for ourselves today and tomorrow. And so that's why it's so important to spend it.
We have to. Why
Yeah.
not? Now, what's cool is when you start doing this work, you start understanding, opportunity costs and trade-offs. What I love, right now I could be pay yourself first and then go into credit card debt and out of it, right? You could technically do that. You could live a whole life where you've set money aside from every paycheck. It just automates into your retirement accounts and all of that. And then you
Mhm.
could actually be really bad with money from there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could.
Yeah.
What I think is interesting is adopting a system where you're saving ahead for big ticket items, like saving ahead for vacation, saving ahead for your car, saving ahead for these things.
Yeah.
When you save ahead, you have that opportunity to constantly be asking yourself, okay, so I'm spending a lot of resources saving for this next car. Is that really my priority? Like, so if you're looking at like an $80,000 car, for instance, it's going to take a while to save for it. And then along the way, you've got years to say, is that really what I want? And maybe it is, because if you're still really excited every month and you're dreaming of that Porsche Cayenne, then like, yeah, you really want it. But if you're saving and you're like, that actually, I'd rather have a remodeled kitchen. That would bring me more incremental happiness. I think I'd rather be consistently putting money away for that. I think that's where we can kind of refine our saving a little bit more in the moment when we save ahead for these big ticket items in our lives rather
And
than
the
putting them on debt.
Exactly. It's so easy to swipe a credit card or just take out a loan or whatever on an impulse. It's a whole lot harder to save for it slowly. And then you do get that incubation time, to really think about whether you want it or not. How about Amazon or like other ways you can make impulse purchases? Do you have like any hacks for that?
Okay, so husband, if you are listening to this, stop listening. I don't want you to hear my hypocrisy here. We
Turn
just
it off.
had the biggest Amazon bill. So we had this practice that worked so well on Amazon where we linked our debit card to it. And over the
Oh.
last several months, I think that card expired and we hadn't updated it. So we started defaulting to this credit card on there. And
Mhm.
our spending has gotten out of control on that Amazon card. So actually, I told him yesterday, I was like, oh my God, I need to update that debit card. That shuts the spending down.
How
You put your
interesting.
spending on your Amazon Venmo. I have a separate account that we do all of our spending on a debit card. We fund it weekly. That's what I
Okay.
teach in the book. So all spending happens on this one debit card that gets refreshed every Monday. We spend it to zero by Sunday and it starts all over. So our Amazon used to be connected to that card and it stopped, and it is amazing how it just went out of control. I mean,
It's
how do you control Amazon? Does it
It's so
control you?
easy. I know. It's so easy. One time I took it off my phone. I took the app off my
Oh,
phone so that I would have to get on my desktop in order to make a purchase on Amazon, and that cut it down quickly, really quickly, because then I can't be like sitting on the couch with my glass of wine and making purchases at the end of the day,
yes. I
That's
have
not
a
a
no
fun.
drinking in Amazon policy.
There you
We're
go.
gonna come up with it right here on this podcast.
Put the wine down.
Put the wine down.
I know. There's so many things they have. It's so useful. But yes, putting in a little bit of incubation time and just like putting it off, just putting it in your cart and then not pressing checkout, just leaving it there and coming back in a couple of days and seeing if you still want it. All
That's
of
it,
those
the
things can
wish
help.
list. Like you
Yeah.
can also put it there. Isn't it so sad when you have an Amazon box show up or three and you really don't even know what's in them? That's
I
how you know
know.
how much you don't need this stuff. If you're like,
Right.
huh, wonder what's in those boxes.
It's so true.
What are we doing?
It's so true. Yeah. When it gets to that point, it's like during Christmas time, you're ordering a lot of stuff for Christmas, and that makes sense. But yeah, around Christmas time is when I start to get this anxiety. I'm like, I don't know what's coming. And it means we're buying way too much.
That's it. That's it. And then the other one is like restaurants. I mean, that's the thing we got control of, that crept up on us in COVID. And I was looking
Mhm.
at my husband, I was like, we're eating our retirement. Literally, we're eating our retirement. And
Oh
so
my God.
that's when we went from, eating out a couple times a week to a couple times a month. So
Yeah.
Amazon and eating out, big time.
Big deals for sure. Actually, I want to touch on this. Your book is called But First Save 10. But for physicians, do you still recommend them to save 10%?
So any residents, fellows, you can save 10% right now in a
Yeah.
Roth. Most of you have access to a 401k plan or a 403b plan through your training program.
Mm-hmm.
Please do a Roth, save 10%. Most of you have been auto enrolled at like 4% or 5%. Go to your HR and change that. Save 10%. But unfortunately, once you're out, the book I would write for you all, it'd be the exact same book, different cover, but first save 25. Most physicians are going to probably need to save about 25% of their gross pay in order to be able to retire by the time they're 65. There are going to be some differences. So physicians who are starting out later in life, you're going to need to probably save more. Physicians who are coming out with more than one times your income in student loan debt, you probably want to have a higher savings rate and absorb some of your student loan payments within that higher savings rate. And then when the student loans are either forgiven through PSLF or paid off, that payment then becomes part of your retirement savings.
Right.
For physicians who want to set yourselves up to retire early, in your 50s, you might want to have a savings rate that looks closer to 35 and 40%.
Yeah, I think 35 and 40%, it's not simple, but it's not hard. If you're watching your spending and not going out twice, 3 times a week, physicians do earn enough to do that, right? And that's the beauty of it. I totally agree with you. I think 25 is a good number for physicians overall. What do you think about the student loan landscape right now? What are you telling your people? Because recently, this is August 30th that we're recording. This will air afterwards, unfortunately, it won't help. But I'm seeing a lot of people freaking out about opting out of something, that there's some sort of opt out, that the deadline is tomorrow. There's so much going on in the student loan world as far as the save plan, the injunctions, the district court. What are your feelings about all of that?
I just think that there are some details. I think the main thing physicians need to understand is that you've got to pay attention to your student loans, your own personal student loans. I think that if we learned one lesson, so, at my company, we actually have student loan programs that we do, not just for physicians, but for entire hospitals. And so we help people navigate through the public service loan forgiveness program. And yes, the government came through and through waivers and this account adjustment that they're allowing over the last couple of years. They allowed physicians who for over a decade had been incorrectly repaying on loans. So loans that would have never been eligible for public service loan forgiveness, like those FFEL loans that they used to give out until 2010. So here's the deal. If you had one of those FFEL loans, for instance, if you would have called your servicer and said, I don't understand, I work in public service, I should be eligible for PSLF, what's going on? They would literally say to you, you are not eligible for PSLF. And you would have thought, this expert is telling me I'm not eligible. So I guess for some reason, this is just a bogus program. I'm not eligible. And
Mm-hmm.
so what we've learned, and obviously anybody kind of probably listening to this knows this, that, yeah, you were technically not eligible with a FFEL loan, but a 20-minute, consolidation would get you eligible, a little bit of paperwork and suddenly you're eligible. And before those waivers, you would have had to literally start the clock over on your 10-year clock for PSLF with the correct loans. But what I want everyone to know is whether save goes away or save is there and you get out or you get back in, it doesn't matter. What you need to be doing is overall is continuously paying attention to it. Okay. That is my biggest lesson. You might have a handle on it right now. The rules could change in 2 months. You need to then have a handle on it in 2 months. This is an active program. And if you are not going to pay attention, and that's a very fine thing to say, I'm not going to pay attention. There are student loan services. We're not one of them, but there are physician student loan services that you can hire where you go get somebody who will tell you what to do, and it is worth every penny if you're going after PSLF. I mean, the value of PSLF to physicians, I've seen physicians get $300,000, $400,000 forgiven. I mean, the value is huge. Pay for someone to pay attention to it for you if you're not going to.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a tendency for people to say, oh, it's too complicated. I don't like the uncertainty around it. I bet it's going to go away. So this kind of all or nothing, black or white thinking. I do not think PSLF, I mean, it could go away. I don't think it's going to. Remember, it was passed by Congress in 2007 during a Republican administration. So just be very prudent about it. Yes, a repayment program can go away, but think about it big picture of what you still have, taking full advantage, residents, making sure that you're filing your tax returns, that you can have your next year, have a really low payment. Just be very, very smart about how you approach this. And
Yeah.
every time there's a new rule, just make sure you're on top of it or you're paying someone else to be on top of it.
Yeah. So moral of the story, don't trust the servicer's phone lines. Oh my God. Like you get so much wrong information when you call into your servicer, right? It's
Yes.
horrible.
Well, and think about it though. I mean, like that has to be a bad job. I mean, right? Like think about how hard it is to be in the customer service business like that on phone banks. And then you think like, I mean, it took me years to feel like I really had a firm grasp on student loan.
Yeah.
And so these servicers, I mean, I've had servicers tell my clients that they weren't eligible for PSLF because they had Stafford loans. Oh, I'm sorry, those aren't eligible. Oh, really? Okay.
Well, those don't sound like federal loans to me. It sounds like it came from Stafford.
So in our student loan programs, we have, thousands of people in them. And so we get these stories from servicers that are just truly unbelievable. So no, you need to go to these student loan experts because they're the ones that really, in our case, we have two incredible student loan experts. They're the ones that know. Don't
Yeah.
listen to the servicers, listen to us.
I mean, really, nothing comes for free, right? You're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars forgiven, but think of it as the cost of that. If you're going to keep them around and go for forgiveness, then you need to pay attention or pay someone else to do that for you. But yeah, you need to keep up because it's changing way too fast. And it's a part of, the process. It's part of the government trying to do checks and balances, executive branch, legislative branch, and the judicial branch all in play here in the student loan world right now. So we really need to pay attention. I totally agree with that. When do you advise people to pay them off rather than wait for forgiveness?
Often. So some physicians come out with very little in student loans compared to their income. So let's say you have 75,000 or 100,000 in student loans and you're 3 or 4 years away from potential forgiveness and you make $500,000 a year. Pay them off,
Yeah.
just slay that debt. It's high interest, relatively high interest. If you came to me and I said, I'm going to give you an interest rate of 7%. If you give me a federally guaranteed rate of return of 7% on your money, would you take it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So pay off your student loans, like aggressively pay them off. What a great rate of return.
Another benefit is you get your peace of mind back and you don't have to make your huge life decisions based on what the government is doing and who's in power. That's another empowering thing about paying off loans is you get all that mental energy you would have spent keeping up with the student loan world. You can now tune out safely.
For some reason, student loans carry a huge burden on people's minds. I agree.
Yeah.
When they pay them off, it is a great feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I think forgiveness is definitely worth it still if you're going to go for it. And even in this world right now where it's so nuts, but there's a cost to everything. Nothing's for free. So you have to really weigh your choices. All right. So I think we made some really good progress and made some really good points. Before I let you go, Sarah, would you mind explaining your waterfall system to us a little bit? Because I've seen that around a lot and I really think those are brilliant. So how about let's do a waterfall for young attendings?
Great. Oh, this is my love language, is the tax efficient waterfall. So yeah, the tax efficient waterfall is basically this idea of paying yourself first. And a lot of people love to talk about investing and saying like, where's the best place to invest? And if we look at the data on investing and trying to get an outsized return, trying to quote unquote beat the market, the chances are very slim. So what we need to do is we need to say, okay, well, if we know we can't really beat the market, then what can we do with our money to make it grow faster than it would otherwise? And using the tax code is the best way to do it. Think about it this way. If you put money into a 403B at your hospital, I know that sounds so boring. I just funded my retirement account. Well, let me tell you what you just did. You just basically said to the federal government, I'm putting money in here and you're going to give me a tax deduction. So that's money that I get to keep that I otherwise would have just poof, it would have gone into your pocket. It's now staying in mine in a bucket I control. So it's essentially like getting kind of an interest-free loan on that particular money from the federal government. And it's like, when do you have to pay it back? Maybe in a few decades, right? Because
Right.
that's money that would have been gone. Instead, you got a tax deduction immediately when you put that money into your retirement account. You have a bigger pile of money now than you would have had otherwise. This is why I love your retirement account at work. And we have to take full advantage of it. Now, here's the tax efficient waterfall. Is if we follow that logic, that what we want to do is we want to leverage our money and the taxes that we are not having to pay now that we'll pay back later. So what we want to do is we want to, first of all, max out the free money that we can get at our jobs, any kind of match, anything like that, using this pre-tax 403B, 401k, or 457. Next, we want to pay off all high interest debt. Any credit card debt, we should prioritize that. So after we've maxed out our match, slay that credit card debt until it's done. Once that credit card debt is paid off, then we want to waterfall our money down to the next bucket, which is maxing out all available retirement plans at work. So our first bucket was just maxing out the free money using our pre-tax account. Now we just want to max out our accounts in general. So you might have a 403B at work. So you want to make sure you're getting that full $23,000, but you might have an additional 457 that you can also max out at work. Then you might have a non-qualified account, right? So you might have, several different buckets available to you. Some people can also put in money after tax and be able to do we call it a mega backdoor Roth conversion there at work. So we see some work retirement plans where you can put up to 120,000, across all of the different plans. It's just truly incredible how much money you can put into some work retirement plans. If you have an HSA available to you, so if you work for a company and you have a high deductible healthcare plan that is HSA eligible, max that out. Again, you're getting that pre-tax deduction. You're getting to use the federal government's money for a period of time. You get to grow that money in the market, pay them back later, except you don't pay them back later with an HSA. As long as you use that on health expenses, you will never pay taxes on that money ever again. An HSA has a triple tax advantage. So you can max that account out. And then the trick is don't spend it. We were just talking about this. My daughter just had her tonsils out.
Yep.
We had to pay $4,000 out of pocket.
Why?
I would have loved to reach into my HSA, right? Where the money is just sitting there waiting to be spent. But no, that would have ruined the tax plan where that money gets to grow. I'm using the federal government's money and I'm growing it over time. I don't want to ruin that. So we cash flowed that sucker out of pocket and my HSA stayed intact. And so you fund your HSA. Then you can open up backdoor Roth IRAs. There's some great tutorials out there. You just Google backdoor Roth. If you're married, you can each kind of max one of those out, but please follow instructions. Some people do those poorly and spend a lot of money trying to unwind them. And then finally, opening a taxable brokerage account. The thing that I was talking about at the beginning. Some of you, if you're trying to hit your 25% savings rate, you've maxed out your work retirement plans. You've maxed out your HSA. There is no high interest credit card debt. and you've maxed out backdoor Roth IRAs. And for you to hit that 25% savings rate, you might have to put $2,000 or $3,000 a month into a brokerage account. No sweat. Open it up. And then as long as you're investing in mutual funds, yes, you're going to pay some taxes on, your interest, dividend income. But if you're in a buy and hold strategy, you're not selling things and generating capital income, your taxes. You're going to just grow that money over time in a very boring strategy where you're buying and buying and buying, and you're using new money to rebalance. So it's very tax efficient when you use a brokerage account that way. A lot of people don't realize that even a taxable brokerage account can be very tax efficient. And then from there, all of, in my opinion, all of your savings rate should be captured in those buckets. Now, some people ask me, where does investing in alternatives like, real estate syndications or angel investing or buying a cattle ranch or investing in your friend's restaurant? Please don't do either of those things. But if you're going to, don't do it with your primary savings rate. So this is with money that you've saved beyond your savings rate that's going to get you to retirement. And then you can throw that in that bucket. And then finally, pay off your house.
Yeah. Okay. So that's your last thing, is to pay off the house. I agree with that. Well, thank you so much. Right now, I'd like to shift into our rapid fire segment. So this is just a fun thing we do at the end of the episode where I just want you to give me a short answer on whatever comes to mind first.
Oh boy. Okay.
All right. Let's go. What's the best piece of financial advice you've ever received?
Beware the golden handcuffs.
Oh, yeah. So totally true. If you could only choose one financial habit for people to adopt, what would it be?
Pay yourself first.
Yeah, that makes sense, given the title of your book. Next one. Biggest money myth you wish would go away.
Stop throwing away your money in rent.
So you're a renter proponent then.
Oh, yes. Fixed expenses all the way. Yes.
Absolutely. Okay. Favorite financial book besides your own?
I love lots of books. Can I just say anything by Jack Bogle? He's like my hero. Also, Your Money or Your Life. I mean, like I could go on, but yes, I love Jack Bogle and what he's done to the financial industry. So the more people who read about investing in innovations, the better. Yes.
Yeah. What's one thing people often overlook in their financial planning?
Their spouse.
Good point. The most rewarding part of your job?
I love watching people see the joy that can come when they take over control of their finances and build wealth.
Yeah, that's huge. And it's joy, really. Money is the biggest cause of divorce, right? It's a huge cause of anxiety in people's lives. I mean, it really makes so many powerful decisions in our lives if you let it. And when you take the control back and the money works for you, you make your choices, you can live a freer life, man. It's huge. It's huge.
I told you my husband and I don't like talking about money, but we sure love the results of our financial decisions on our life. Like we have flexibility. Like we meet our kids at the bus stop. Like we were able to shed the 9-to-5s, both of us.
Nice.
Like because of the work we did early in our marriage, getting control of our money. We sometimes will do this thought exercise at the dinner table and we'll be like, what would we give up to never change our life? Like we would give up anything in our lives, our bigger house, our cars. We would come down to anything to keep our time the way we have it. It is an extraordinarily joyful thing. So anyone that tries to tell me that money cannot bring happiness, please come talk to me.
Certainly makes it more attainable.
I sure love my time.
I love it. Well, tell me about a vacation you took this summer.
This was the best. We went to Glacier National Park and Yellowstone. I want to be a cowgirl. I'm there. I'm ready. We were chased by a bison. We had it all. It was an extraordinary summer. Like we were actually in Grand Canyon. We just go to national parks whenever we can. And I'd never been to that area of the country. And it is unbelievable. Yes.
I've never
Glacier
been.
National Park.
Okay.
I just go.
It's going on my list.
Put it on the list.
Sounds amazing. So you actually rode horses in the national park?
We did not. We were chased by a bison. We were at the maximum bus length distance we were supposed to be on the brochure. Always save a little bit more than they recommend. So yes, we had a very exciting, actually my 9-year-old had the best come back to this. My husband was like, we had that excursion with the bison and they didn't even charge. And my son said, that bison charged us. So yes, we had a very exciting but safe in the end vacation. I recommend it. You can't use your cell phone, right? Like it is totally disconnected. You're in nature. Can't recommend it more.
Yeah, we did something similar this summer too. We went away to the Adirondacks and there was no cell phone reception. There was no internet, not even a TV in the cabin. So it was just like hanging out. We went with the grandparents. We were just playing lots of board games and like I tortured them with playing guitar at night.
You play guitar?
Quote unquote. No, yes, I do. But, I'm not like excellent and it's a very old guitar, but I can strum a chord or two and keep people entertained. Yeah, but it was like just turning off the technology. It's such a gift. My God. And, you get so used to just being overstimulated and just getting back in the moment is so key.
And again, vacations, man, they do bring happiness, right?
That's right. Exactly. And that's why we manage our money.
Right. Got to save for those vacations. Even to national parks are not inexpensive.
Right. Absolutely. And then when you do it, when you have enough money and you're not going into credit card debt, they're even more relaxing. So get your stuff together, save 10 to 25 to 40% first. And you'll be fine. Sarah Catherine, thank you so much for joining us. And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me on. Happy saving, everybody.
We covered a lot of ground today, from simplifying your finances to making smarter, more coordinated financial decisions. Huge thanks to Sarah Catherine for sharing her expertise. If you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review, and share it with someone who might need a financial boost. Let's continue to make informed, savvy choices with our money. Until next time, stay frugal, y'all.
The content shared on this podcast should not be taken as individualized financial advice. We are here to share our knowledge and experiences, but it is crucial to consult with professionals such as accountants, financial advisors, or attorneys who can provide personalized guidance based on your specific needs.